Welcome to another special interview for the Powerful Men's Group. This week I've got Dr. Mark Howard with me. Dr. Mark Howard is a clinical psychologist and has been working for many years with people from all walks of life. I came across Mark when I was training to be a coach, and he's someone who's had a profound impact on how I coach and how I work with individuals. And so I'm really glad that he agreed to be part of this interview series. Welcome to the interview, Mark. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Ankush. It's really wonderful to be here. Looking forward to us having a conversation.
Yeah, and before we started, we were doing some of the preamble, and you were telling me about how you'd worked with a lot of men and been part of men's group in your time as well. Could you say a little bit about your background in that?
Well, yeah, when I worked in a medical center in a psychiatry department, I just saw there was a need for men to get together and just talk about how to live more happily in life and with less worry and concern and stress. So I started a men's group that had continual, ongoing uh, participation for 10 years. So we really had a nice time together in these groups and learned a lot about what it means to be a man in life and have understanding and connection to others. So it was really a great experience.
You were telling me before we started recording just that you'd been reflecting on what it means to be a powerful man and what that means for you. And I know every single person I've interviewed for this series has got their own thoughts on that. What does that mean to you? What does being a powerful man mean to you and look like to you?
Well, it's changed over time, of course, because of my understanding of of our true nature being really that we're connected to an intelligence that's part of this universe, kind of a spiritual energy, if you like to call it that, that is really the intelligence that is guiding us in life and guiding us to really realize our true nature as a living being, a human being, which is one of happiness and well-being, love and understanding, is to manifest more of that true nature. And that's a little different than when I was in working in the men's groups, in that we were looking at the beliefs and expectations and assumptions of what's in the world about being a man and trying to deal with those better. But that doesn't really get you to really true power as a man. In fact, for me, in the reflection around this and in my learnings over the last 20 years, is that really this intelligence is impersonal. It really doesn't care if you're a man or a woman, but it is an intelligence that will allow you to live your life fully and connect it to others and find happiness and well-being and use your wisdom, which you could call your strengths. So for very briefly, I grew up in an era much earlier than probably your audience. I grew up as a boy in the 50s and in high school and college in the 60s. And I had, expectations and assumptions that I was following and trying to fulfill. Like, I had to make the money in a relationship. I had to be sure that my way was right. I had to be competitive and tough. Those were kinds of the ideas I was following. And so, but those are just ideas. Those are just kind of beliefs that, were handed down to me innocently. People were living those beliefs before I came along into the world, and they passed them on to me. And then my friends and family and so forth were under the same beliefs. So we formed our own beliefs of what it meant to be a man, a strong man. But then coming upon this understanding, I realized, well, there's something deeper than these beliefs, because to try to become a strong man just according to these beliefs is really kind of it's flimsy. It doesn't really give you a deeper strength in your heart or in your soul. So, so anyhow, that's what I've been reflecting on, on Kush, and really realizing that we have an intelligence that we can listen to that will guide us to be to have strength, to live life in a strong way, and connecting and having understanding for others, and having deep connections with other people.
So, what would you say, Mark, to just playing devil's advocate to someone that says, well, we've gone too far the other way, that, at least back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, men were men and they knew their roles.
Yeah.
And now we've gone too far the other way, and where are all the real men at, and all of that stuff?
Well, again, men are men is just a belief. It's just an idea of that means, to be a man. What does that mean? Men are men. Does that mean that you don't listen to women? Or does that mean that, your way of going about things, you have to fight that to the end? I've known a lot of men who grew up thinking that you need to be a man, in that term, whatever that means, really, and have ended a number of relationships that, had they had some understanding that would allow them to manifest their intelligence, this intelligence and innate wisdom, they'd have a deeply loving relationship. It wouldn't come to an end. So what does that mean? It's just a form that somebody thought up somewhere along the line before we came into life. It existed in the consciousness of the world around what it means to be a man and to be a man's man. Well, what does that mean? So when you really see that you are part of this spiritual energy, it's impersonal. It doesn't care. It just means that it will guide you to find your ability to have understanding and have happiness and well-being, and become more and more your true self. Now, in that, you don't lose your wisdom, once again, your wisdom, to say something is wrong, or to be assertive, or to let people know what you want. You don't lose that, because that's the wisdom telling you you need to do that. But there are ways to do that that doesn't, destroy another person or injure another person, either emotionally or physically, because you're going to be a man's man. So it doesn't make you a welcome mat for the world at all. In fact, it really aligns you to living in life connected to other people, following a wisdom so you can manifest your power.
So, are you saying that people are kind of caught up in behaviors? So, before, people were caught up in behaviors maybe several decades ago about being a man looks like this, and now people are still caught up in behaviors around, well, no, we need to go back, but they're still on the level of behavior. This is kind of what I'm hearing from you. And are you saying that it's not about having certain rules or being inflexible, but realizing that there's a source of inner strength inside you?
That's right. That's really the point. Is that you you look at the thoughts you're having in terms of what it means for you to show up as a man in any areas of your life, in any role that you play, father or spouse or partner, or in your work. And you can follow ideas that were presented to you. You don't know they are ideas presented to you. They look like truths. But if you could start to look at them in terms of, well, these are just rules or expectations I was handed down to me, and look at those and see if they really do speak to who you truly are. Now, you can follow those, or you can follow the these inner resources we have to live life more fully ourselves, really, to live life more fully ourselves. Now, that doesn't mean that you give up what you want. Doesn't mean that's again is following rules and ideas that maybe have moved our form as a man to another, in another direction, that now some men are rebounding against, you know. But that's still an idea. You want to be able to use what the wisdom you were born with to guide you to live in your life truly as a being with the intelligence of the universe behind you. So you have resources that go beyond rules that were made up somewhere along the line in our about how it is to show up as a man. See, so you could express yourself, and you could express yourself forcefully. It doesn't mean that because you listen with understanding, for example, or get the feeling of love, which allows you to be gracious or generous, or live in connection with another person deeply and really see that you have what you want or can express what you want and people can hear you and give it to you more easily. Uh, to me, that's a better way to go. You know, if you followed rules about, you know, let's just say you need to be strong as a man, again, what does that mean? Does that mean you express what you want in a way that the other person gets defensive with you? Well, if they get defensive with you, they're certainly not going to hear you or give you what you want. So all I'm saying is what you're saying. You know, if we get a chance to look at whether we're going to follow expectations or ideas that are made up to try to be what it is to be a man, take a look at that and try to listen to something deeper that's within us, these inner resources of wisdom that will help us out.
So if someone's listening to this and they're saying, "Well, that sounds really great, Mark, but
Yeah.
how do I do it? What can people do? What practical steps can they take to tap into their inner wisdom? What if someone's listening to this and watching this and saying, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to listen to my gut. What would you advise them to do?
Well, you know, so I was up against the same thing, really. I mean, when I grew up, I think one of the things that I learned that I held on to very strongly was that, you know, my way was the right way. And so I took offense a lot when people did things differently, you know, not physically, but I would argue a lot with people. And in my work, I was with other mental health professionals, and every time they presented another approach to things, I would be in a debate. Um, but that wasn't leading me to happiness, really. That wasn't leading me to feel good about myself across the board. Now, I was a good guy, you know. I had a good marriage and all of that, but I would argue a lot. So I think what helps is to begin to take a look at um, what's the feeling that you're getting as a result of your approach as a man. Are you getting angry or upset? Do you see that you might be hurting people? Is it getting you to a place where you're feeling a real deep connection with other people? So, kind of using your feelings to give you a guide. And if you start to get feelings where you are feeling peaceful, or you're feeling generous, or you're just thankful for what is for yourself or for somebody in your life, or you feel like apologizing, or you have feelings of, you know, it really makes sense to you to follow this direction, to make this decision, then you're probably on the right course. Because the insights that would come that are available to you, you know, I didn't even know you could have insights beyond the thinking I already had about being right, that I could see life and how to be with other people in a totally different way that led me to have better relationships and to consider other people more deeply. And my feelings guided me to that. Yeah, you know, so, um, but I bet you probably already hear from this resource. For example, you know, if you've ever had thoughts about, like, you know, making an amends to someone or forgiving someone or being generous to someone, or trying to hear what another person's really trying to say, or thinking about consideration about the other person's way of going about it and working with people. Whenever you are contributing, letting other people contribute to the issue and see what they have to say. So if you've done things like that, you've been listening to this inner resource. It's just seeing that you want to listen more to it and see what you realize from it. What I realized from it really has helped me a lot in my work and with other people and in my marriage.
When you talk about inner resource, is that the same thing as your gut?
Well, um, tell me what you mean by gut.
So I know for me, for many years, um, I didn't used to listen to what I thought was my gut, what I thought was right. It was something that was kind of beyond my intellect. And as um, I guess, had my journey, if you like, through the self development world, my personal growth journey, um, I found that more and more I'd listen to what I would call my gut instinct. It's something that was beyond the facts and figures that were presented to me. I'm like, this just feels right. And the more and more I listened to that, the more and more that feeling tended to grow. And so I know over the last few years, I might have a situation where everyone's telling me to do a certain thing, or the facts point me to do a certain thing, but there's something inside me, and I call it my gut, which says, do you know what? That course of action is the right course of action for you. And every time I followed that, it's worked out well for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's always guided me in the right direction. Is that what you're talking about when you talk about inner strength and inner guidance?
Yeah, I'm trying to point to something that really is, we're unable to get a complete understanding for. Again, I'm trying to point to the fact that we have this intelligence that's part of this universe going for us. So just like you know, our cells know how to follow an intelligence to heal a wound in our body. It does it. They just do it, and you can rely on your body doing that. You can call that an intelligence, and we have the same thing going for us in our psychology, in our emotional life, and in our ways of being directed to life. So when you have that feeling that this is right for me, and it isn't coming from a stance like I've got the right way, but it's just coming to you like, wait a minute, no, no, I feel I should go in this direction. That's it. That's it. I'll give you an example, and I'm not saying that. Being a man means that you should apologize all the time, but this is just a story to tell you about the feeling for it. So part of my work in this medical center, I became a manager of a program. I directed a program, a treatment program, and I had a staff of 8 clinical psychologists, and we would meet once a week to kind of review things and go over things and so forth. And in one of the meetings, this colleague of mine who was really very, very supportive of me and helped me out through many, many years together said something, and I just really got angry back, and sharp. And the minute I said that, I knew I was off. And it came to me, it just came to me, you're off here, because I think I heard myself loudly, because this person and I really worked well together and really had, although there were some difficult issues we had to deal with and there were differences, we could handle them. And my tone just shocked me. So I really realized, oh man, I'm off here. But I couldn't get back. I couldn't get back to try to find a way to take care of the situation. So we left the meeting, and it was still not a good feeling between the two of us. And as I was walking, my gut kind of spoke to me. It occurred to me, I need to get that relationship right, and that I was off. I may not have liked what she did, but the way I responded to her was off. So these thoughts just came to me. They came to me, and I was feeling, this is right. This is right. And then it occurred to me, I need to just go talk to her and tell her I was sorry for the way I spoke to her, and how much I appreciated our work, and can we get the relationship back? So all of that came to me, and it felt right to do. It really felt right to do. Now, my former self, with some of the rules I learned as being a man, that didn't look like the right thing to do. If I listened to those words, which I have had at time, right? So those are other words coming in, other thoughts coming into me from the past. Um, I wouldn't have done it. It would have said, "Oh, you're whipped, how, or you're weak, or you don't show a sign of weakness, She should have known better. You get it?" So, but I didn't hear those things because I knew what was the right thing to do from what you're talking about, gut. But it's just this, I don't know, feeling that comes to you when you know something is right about how you're thinking. I went and did that, and uh, and it just made our relationship more powerful in working together to make this program work even better. And when that happened, she told me that, and then she apologized for the way she approached the issue in the meeting, and we connected again very deeply and became even closer colleagues. And actually, that influenced the rest of the team, right? Because they felt it too. But when they saw that we had healed it, and we're back to ourselves, and the team admired that. So I guess if that's what you mean by gut, that's an example of it. Just a story. I'm not saying do this, but I'm not saying don't do it either. But I'm trying to explain to you about the feeling of it. It's the feeling of it, to know that if you're getting something from the wisdom that you were born with, it will always have a feeling of feeling right to you as a person, and be toward the positive. It'll never be toward the negative.
There are a lot of men, and when I say a lot of men, I'm talking about myself in the past, that I used to use anger as kind of, I felt like it was a step forward.
Yeah,
So I used to be very shy, lacking in
yeah,
confidence, very weak, and it looked like to me, at least getting angry, I was being powerful.
yeah.
Right? It looked like a step forward. And is there a place for anger? Because I know different people have different views on that. Or are you saying that there's a place to transcend anger, and it doesn't mean be going weak again, but it's more powerful. It's kind of moving up the scale even more, and being able to, I guess, put your ego to the side.
Well, this is, geez, it's such. I'm just so happy to be talking about this with you. Um, well, you see, from being shy to vocalizing, you know, your feelings and thoughts, for example, that looks like a step forward. At least you're saying something, than where you were. And it could be looked at as a step forward, an advancement.
Hmm.
But sometimes it might have been better to stay quiet,
Yeah.
in the sense that what anger did to the other person. I don't mean it that way. I'm just kind of kidding about it. So let's look at this. Um, I think it's important as a man to be able to share what you think. I think it's important to be able to communicate with other people what you would like in a situation, and share your thinking. I think shyness and anger are coming from the same source. It's a source of insecurity. Um, it's a misunderstanding, really, of yourself and of the situation. Um, so, given that, uh, so if you were free of insecurity, of thinking um, in some critical way about yourself, or thinking in some judgmental way about yourself or of the other person, you would be more likely to express what you're thinking, um, and express it in a way that would be heard by another person. So, for me, I expressed myself a lot through anger. And again, I was learning that's maybe a source of, that's a sign of strength. I would be guided by that feeling of anger, but I was misreading the situation. I didn't know it at the time, but I had a misunderstanding of the situation, you see. Because one way to look at that is that whatever a person is doing toward you, um, it's not like they're really trying to do it to you. That's just the level of thinking they're at, and that's the best they could do with the thinking they're up against or the way they're seeing life at the moment. Well, if you have that understanding, it's not going to lead you to be angry. It's going to lead you to be able to hear your wisdom in terms of how to handle someone or how to express yourself. Um, is there ever a place for anger? Well, yeah. I mean, you get angry. I'm not saying don't be angry. I mean, you will be. We as humans will have a whole range of emotions. Um, but you always want to have an understanding about it in the sense that there's always another way to look at it that will allow you to be more powerful. That's really true. You see, there's another way to look at it that you'll be more powerful because, again, anger is being created by your belief system. You weren't born with anger. You were born in this pure intelligence of this deep feeling of the intelligence of the universe. You had to learn to get angry at certain things or whatever, right? So remember, I mean, um, there's nothing that I'm not saying anything about being wrong if you're in the feeling. I'm just saying you want to look at it as it's giving you a misunderstanding of what's really taking place. And if you can get beyond the anger in you at some point and listen deeper, you would see more of what's going on that would allow you to be more powerful. You see. So I'll give you a simple example. When I would sit in staff meetings at the medical center, and a psychiatrist would share his approach to helping a patient, I would get angry. I would debate it. You see. Um, now, now, what I realized in the insights that have come to me about this was that the other way of looking at this that came to me and helped me a great deal was other than saying this person's wrong, I realized very deeply that he was trying to do his best to help someone get better. He was doing it his way. And was there a grain of truth in his way? Rather than to write it off completely because of my following my idea of what's right and wrong and be judgmental, I saw it in a human way. Here was a psychiatrist really trying to help people, and who am I to say what way he should do it? Now that allowed me to then have a conversation with him at different times through our career, where my anger toward it wrote him off, you see. So, and he was, he would try to avoid me because I would debate all the time. Anyhow, another story just to try to help see the point that yes, you can live beyond anger. Anger's made up. We create it through our thinking. We create it through the learned ideas we grew up in. And there's a way to look at life that you're living at a higher level of consciousness with more understanding for how people work. And when you understand how people work, You're able to be more connected to the humanness of people. See, that's what'll make you more powerful. Is you if you can hear the humanness of the people you're in relationship with. What's going on with them that they're acting this way? How did that come about for them? Where did they pick it up? At some point, when you really hear that, you'll see how human they are. And when you see that, you feel a deep connection to them, and you'll get the wisdom to know what to do next, to really resolve things, or how to express yourself. So I'm thinking that with what you asked, Ankush, that shyness and anger are two sides of the same coin of insecurity, whereas the intelligence I'm pointing to is a pure wisdom that transcends that, allows you to be outside of insecurity and your true self. That doesn't mean you won't be angry or voice yourself in an angry way, but you also want to know that you want to give yourself an opportunity to see if there's another angle at which to take a look at that would allow you to respond to it with more of this intelligence. Does that help?
Yeah, and it sounds like you're saying, or what you did was put your ego to one side.
Well, yes. Well, again, um, my learnings came from this human being who had a spiritual enlightenment. I mean, really deep spiritual enlightenment, and he really said that all our troubles come from ego, which is our sense of self-importance, greed, jealousy, envy, anger, insecurity. It all comes from ego, which is what we get formed when we come into the world. But before our physical form as a man, we are part of the spiritual energy of mind and the intelligence of that. And the energy of mind is love and understanding. So when you drop a moment of being in your ego, you get this pure intelligence and wisdom that will guide you. And you want to keep looking there, because a lot of the ideas I was taught about how to be a man would would have me deny it. Like I heard this wisdom when I was in my teens and 20s, but I just overrode it by the ideas of what it meant to be a man. So it's about putting the ego aside. You never get rid of your ego. You never get rid of this thinking. But you want to start thinking about where you as a man want to be guided by your internal, how where you want to be guided by your internal psychology. Do you want to be guided by these learned beliefs, or do you want to be guided by your true nature? And so it helped me to know that there were some signals that could help me kind of step away from my usual way of operation and try to hear something deeper. So when he said things like greed or jealousy or envy or worry or anger or insecurity, well, I had the whole gamut, right? I had all of that. But it helped me to know, wow, if I'm visiting greed or if I'm visiting jealousy, I have to be really careful not to keep operating from that and try to look for something deeper. So that helped me. Yes, but in that moment, in the moments, it is that goes aside, that moves away, so your true nature can come through. You could hear it. It's always trying to direct you or guide you and assist you. But when the ego moves aside or your usual thinking quiets down, you hear it.
Now, I can see if men could overcome some of their insecurities, that they could certainly show up more powerfully. And I mean, one thing we haven't talked about really is fear. Does fear kind of come into this same equation? Is it part of the same um, philosophy, if you like, that you're talking about, that you just put that to one side? I mean, how do we deal with our fears as men? And because a lot of people feel that a lot of men feel that they're held back from showing it powerfully by whatever fears are manifesting in their life.
Well, I wonder if do you have like an example of a fear a man might have?
So, I mean, there's just so many. Like, it could be the fear of, many men might have a fear of public speaking, right? So, maybe in a work situation, they don't want to put themselves out there and giving a presentation or something, because they've got a fear around it. Or maybe it could be in their dating life. They've got a fear of asking a cute girl out, or it could be. I don't know, going for a promotion, in so many areas.
Okay, this is great. This is great. This is let's get down to the nitty gritty. Yeah, we're whatever emotion we might be up against in our lives, it really boils down to the same thing. And so so these insecurities or fears you brought up, you could see just really do keep us from showing up with strength, to following our gut. So you are somewhere and you're feeling, oh man, I'd love to go meet that girl, and that's your gut, that's what your good feelings would want, and but then it gets blunted by learned ideas, something about yourself that you picked up in life, or you've made your own interpretations about yourself, or you just get a little nervous like anybody would. I think I would too in that situation, and then you make a bigger deal of it than it should be, so then that takes over, your insecurities take over, and you lose your ability to follow the power you have at the time to connect with somebody, to connect with that girl, or to ask for the promotion, you see, to be assertive. So again, being more aggressive is coming from a way to try to handle that. But if you don't have that in the first place, or you know what it is, so you're not holding it so tightly in your thinking, then you can be assertive. You could share yourself. So yeah, fear is the same thing. It's just a learned way of thinking. Insecurity and fear is just a learned way of thinking about yourself and life. And I don't really talk too much about techniques to get over that. It's more about an understanding that you want to find for yourself, that that it's made up. It's just a made up idea. But the minute you make it up and you give it energy, it's real. It looks completely true. A lot of people, when I've said that in men's groups, particularly about dating, when we were looking at that, said, oh yeah, but you're not, you're married and you're not in that dating scene. Well, it doesn't matter. Again, it doesn't mean that you won't be nervous. It just means you don't make anything of it from your learned ideas, and you go forward with what you thought would be a good idea for you. Now, in all of those fear-based areas, if you went and really tried to be curious about the people you're going to be involved in, asking for a promotion, if you were curious about how your supervisor or your boss was thinking, and you really tried to listen to them before you made your proposal, you'd feel a deeper connection that would kind of make it easier to have a conversation. So the more you went with listening first, rather than trying to talk and present something, the less insecure you're going to be. You see, so if you really saw somebody you'd like to meet, like a girl you'd like to meet, and if you went about it to be curious about her, went to meet to introduce yourself, and you started to just listen to her and listen to her in terms of, just wondering what kind of a person she is and try to connect with her, you would feel less and less insecure. But if you go there thinking about what you should say, how you should introduce yourself, what about you should keep hidden, that kind of stuff, you're going to be more and more insecure. But this is really good, because I really think, Ankush, that these two emotions, anger and fear, really do keep us from our power. And the minute we can settle those down, our natural wisdom will bring us the power to express ourselves.
I just want to get one more quick question in, because we
Okay.
are running out
Okay.
of time. But
Okay.
how can people show up more present? There's a lot of talk about living in the now, being in the present moment. How can people do more of that? Because I feel that people see that would help them show up more powerfully.
Well, presence is a really wonderful experience, and when I mentor life coaches, I talk to them about the value of presence. Now, what is that? Well, the way I talk about it is you're not thinking. There's not a lot of thinking about yourself going on in that moment. You're quieting your mind as much as you can about any personal thinking you've got. And the minute you can quiet down about yourself, you'll be present. Now, presence with another person, another way of looking at that is, again, what I alluded to in terms of this listening piece, is to really try to hear the other person, to really try to hear what are they up against, what are they trying to say to you. And when you do that, you're beyond you. And so presence is really getting beyond your own personal thinking. And the minute that quiets down, you'll be present. What you'll be present in is a kind of a feeling, this kind of feeling of well-being, there's nothing really, you're just there. But if you're in relationship or in a group or whatever, the presence is deepened by your really wanting to hear the other person, what they're up against, their humanness. Really hear them, putting yourself, connecting with them. Because it moves you beyond yourself. And what moves you beyond yourself is not thinking about yourself. So if you quieted all of that down, you'd be present. I was sitting with, when I was first listening to Sydney Banks and trying to understand this spiritual understanding, so I could teach it to my clients, I was sitting with another colleague who was trying to learn this understanding too, and we had just finished a meeting with Sydney Banks, and we were sitting in his living room on a couch, and you could look out on a picture window at mountains and the trees and a really nice pasture, really beautiful scene. And he said to me, Mark, if we just quieted our thinking one little bit, really just one little bit, we would get filled with life. And that really spoke to what we're talking about around presence. We don't know how much we're thinking and engaging that thinking. And the more we quiet it down, the more we're present. And I call it about listening beyond yourself, really trying to hear the life around you. So, in a quick way, that's what I'm here mean about presence. That's what presence means to me.
Yeah, that was a fantastic answer, Mark, and thank you. I think that's such a wonderful place to leave our interview today. If anyone's listening to this and they want to find out more about you or what you're up to, how can they do that?
Well, if they have anything further they want to ask me, they could email me. So that's the email is Dr. Mark Howard. So Dr. like doctor, Dr. Mark Mark Howard HOWARD at Comcast.net. Um, and I have a, a website. Do you want me to give the website,
Sure,
Uncle?
sure.
The website is www written out 3principlesinstitute.org.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Mark. It's
Oh,
been a
it's my
pleasure having you
pleasure.
on this
Oh
interview
yeah,
series.
I've enjoyed being able to do the interview with you. It really had me finding a nice place inside of me to talk to the men who are participating in these sessions.
Thanks, Mark, and I will see the listeners next time.